It's a spiritual if you turn a blind eye.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. So my name's Lucia and I'm a member of Public Child Protection Wales. You all know Kim, she's spoken at these events several times before. We started this organisation back in 2020 and this was due to the apparent gaps in the safeguarding policies in the education and welfare services. So when we first started this, we really did take on board the new RSE that have come into the UK. Most people know about this now, but it did take us quite a while to get people aware of the issue. And there's still so many people who do not realise how bad this education is. So what we're going to do today, we're going to do a little bit of a presentation speaking about how we have got here with the RSE. Then we're going to get through a few of lesson resources. Then we're going to finish off with an activity for you all to see what our school children have got to endure during their school life. So I'm going to pass you on to Kim now. Okay, thank you, Kim.
Thanks, Lou. So as Lou said, today we're going to do a little bit of a presentation for you. We're going to be going through how we got here, the theories that sex education is based on. Then we're going to do some lesson content. So when we look at the lesson content, we're only going to be looking at primary resources. So we're not going to go any further than age 12. This is all primary resources, and it's pretty much a week in the life of schools in the UK. So we'll start off with a little video of some people you might know.
Would feel that a development consideration for children would involve leaving children alone sexually to find their own way for themselves with their own peer groups and not with adults.
Yes, I would be all in favour of children finding their own way sexually, but I think also that adults have a part to play, because children are one part of the whole society. It isn't a society where we separate children from adults.
What do you feel?
I feel that PI is not a procurement agency for children, never has been and never will be. Our political objectives include developing a society where children are given a much higher status than today, where they're recognised as individuals in their own right, and this includes recognising their right to certain sexual freedoms, whilst protecting them from the kind of criminal assaults which took place in Brighton.
But surely it's a question of recognising children's maturity, and how can you have an equal relationship, which is what I take a mature sexual relationship to be, between an adult and a child who is not mature in body, in mind, or personal awareness? It has to be unequal.
I don't accept that this concept of maturity at all. Adults, for instance, aren't necessarily mature. It's a long process.
So I take it for granted that no adult is probably ever mature, but nevertheless my state of maturity, or your state of maturity, is clearly different from that of a child of 12. How can there be an equal relationship which allows them sex, which is usually a shocking experience for everybody at some time or another? How can you allow an equal relationship between two people so unequally positioned at the starting off point?
I don't accept that sex is a spontaneously shocking experience.
I don't think at some stage or other there is an element of shocking sex.
Not if children are properly educated about sex, and it's an obligation on society to see that children are given a far more comprehensive sexual education from a far earlier age.
But in that case they find it out, they discover this with people of their own age and in their own time, and it is the question of inequality which I come back to, which I think you haven't answered.
Indeed, by your lights, the relationship is unequal in the same way that a teacher-child relationship is unequal, in the same way that a parent-child relationship is unequal.
The teacher is not exploiting the child's sex.
And nor is a pedophile. Pedophiles do not exploit children. Child molesters
using the child's sexuality.
No, pedophiles do not use a child's sexuality. Pedophiles develop a mutual sexuality with the child. It's an entirely reciprocal relationship.
But you can't say that because of this business of immaturity and the inequality of the relationship.
Yes, but the definition of maturity is yours. We don't share it.
Well, what is your definition of maturity in this context? So how can a child of 12 make a mature judgment about something like sex for the first time, which it has not the first idea about, and cannot possibly weigh the consequences of it?
you're imputing to a sexual relationship heavy judgmental issues which
No,
are
I'm talking about the
intrinsic.
physical and psychical response.
Yes. A child is able to recognize a pleasurable experience. He is able to recognize a pleasing emotional experience. He is able to express consent and to recognize that this is something he wishes to continue. And a responsible, caring pedophile, it always refers to the wishes of the child.
So that was a paedophile information exchange who were the mouthpiece for a comprehensive sexuality education. And here we have comprehensive sexuality education. So this particular document is from UNESCO, published in 2018. It is the guidance that all teachers in the UK are encouraged to refer to if they're struggling with RSE. Now, we know they are encouraged to use this simply because two of us are RSE teacher trainers and we are licence holders, so we have first-hand knowledge of this. There's no doubt in it. So what is comprehensive sexuality education? It is a rights-based approach. Children's rights, bodily rights, and sexual and reproductive rights. So we took the government to court to fight for our parental rights over this education, and the government successfully argued that parents' rights do not exist. We simply have parental responsibility. So we have a hierarchy of rights. Children's rights at the top, and sexual and reproductive rights come underneath there. We have no parental rights. We only have parental responsibility, making it difficult to safeguard our own children. Now, this comprehensive sexuality education is based on 3 theories. So we're just going to rewind back now to where these 3 theories came from. The first theory is we are sexual from birth. So this came from the work of Alfred Kinsey, who was a zoologist turned sexologist, and he was the main researcher for sexuality. And he published a book called The Sexual Behaviour in the Human Male. So there's an entire chapter, chapter 5, claiming we are sexual from birth. Within chapter 5, this is the sexual behaviour of the adolescent male. If you look at table 34 here, you will see age, number of orgasms, time involved. This study was where children were being sexually assaulted with a stopwatch to see how many times these words, they're their words, not mine, these children could orgasm within that 24 hours. This particular table, table 34, age there, 5 months old, 3 orgasms, time unknown. 11 months old, 10 orgasms in 1 hour. So this is the kind of thing we're dealing with here. But there's another table within this book where a child was used from 2 months old. So apparently, this is the research to prove we are sexual from birth. So you'll find in some documents about pleasure. Pleasure and sex-positive approach is how this is being played out in the classrooms.
Okay, so the second one here is gender theory. Some of you may have heard of this. This all started with someone called John Money. He was a doctor. The 2 children in this photo were actually 2 brothers who were circumcised at birth, but one of the circumcisions went wrong, David Grimer. It went wrong, and he was advised by John Money, the parents, were advised by John Money to bring the child up as a girl. So his penis was put into a vagina, and he was brought up as a girl. Now, later on in their lives, David Reimer and his brother did find out the real reason that he was actually a boy. They were actually sexually assaulted during John Money's sick experiments, and they did commit suicide in their 30s. However, this experiment was put down as a success, and gender theory was born from this. And here we have the gender theory in all its glory. We've got the gender expression, gingerbread man there, genderbread man.
Genderbread person.
Oh, sorry, genderbread person. I do beg my pardon. And the gender unicorn. So these here are actually shown in the classroom where we've got gender identity, gender expression, gender attraction, and biological sex. So where we're talking about gender identity, it's completely different to your biology, your biological sex, and your gender expression may not be matched to your gender identity. So all these things are explained to children as young as 4 or 5. Okay, so now we've got here, these are 3 gender theorists. We've got Michel Foucault, I think I pronounced that right. So he was the first one here who took on queer theory. And then in the middle there, we've got Judith Butler, who carried on the work from Michel Foucault. And then we've got Emma Reynolds there, right at the end there. So Emma Reynolds, she was very much involved with writing the RSE curriculum in Wales. And her work was very much, it's just very much in the content, the lesson content. So I'm just going to read a little bit of a quote here from herself. Queering childhood involves not just queering of sex, gender, and sexual binary oppositions, such as male, masculinity, and female, femininity, and heterosexual, homosexual, but also the generational binaries, adult/child. So here we're seeing that they're demonstrating that there should not be any rules when it comes to adult and child sexualities.
So, here are the documents that we use in the decision making to introduce comprehensive sexuality education to the UK. So the first document there, Sexuality Education in Europe and Central Asia. Page 174 is a study done in England. There's a little note in the corner to say the study was done in England, but it can be applied to the whole of the UK. Page 8 of this document tells us which document was used in this decision making, which is the second document here, which we are going to go into. And it also states that this was used for select committees, decision makers, health, people involved in health. So they all use this particular document, the World Health Organization Standards for Sexuality in Europe, which was published in 2010. So this is the kind of thing we are looking at within this document. You can find all of these documents on our website, and this is why we're explaining which pages you can go to, okay? This stuff has been proven as fact in court with our statements. They could not refuse any of this as misinformation. It has been proven as fact. So here we have again at the top there, you've got the age, 0 to 4. The first column coming down is the information fed into the child. The second column is the skills the child will acquire. The third is the attitudes the child will develop from that. Now, the first section, you've got the human body and human development, then fertility and reproduction, and then finally sexuality. So what we've done is we're just going to zone in on the sexuality part and read those out for you. So just a reminder, age 0 to 4, okay? Enjoyment and pleasure when touching one's own body, early childhood masturbation. Where have we heard that before? Pie. So discovery of one's body and own genitals, the fact that enjoyment and physical closeness is a normal part of everyday life, gain an awareness of gender identity, talk about pleasure and unpleasurable feelings in one's own body, express own needs and wishes and boundaries, for example, in the context of playing doctor. And apparently, the attitude the children will develop towards this is respect for others. So that's age 0 to 4. Now, I know we don't have children in school, 0 to 4, but in Wales we do have children in school full-time from 3. And the law in Wales is sex education from age 3. So this document was used in all 4 countries for them to accept comprehensive sexuality education in March 2017. So now we look at age 4 to 6. Again, exactly the same layout, but let's look at the sexuality part. enjoyment and pleasure when touching one's own body, early childhood masturbation. The meaning and expression of sexuality, for example, expressions of feeling in love. Appropriate sexual language. Sexual feelings, closeness, enjoyment, excitement, all part of human feelings. Talk about sexual matters, that's communication skills. Let me remind you, age 4 to 6. Consolidate their gender identity, use sexual language in a non-offensive way, and the attitudes the child will develop from that is a positive body image. Now, you won't find this document in the classrooms because they've brought in the UNESCO document. And even at the front of the UNESCO document, it tells you it's part of this anyway, okay? So there's no denying these documents go together. So what we've got here in the UK, the UNESCO document starts from age 5 to 8. They slightly change the terminology. This is a rights-based approach, beefed up with rights, children's rights. It's a little easier on the eye. But as you can see there, people can show love for other people through touching and intimacy. Define good touch, bad touch. Recognise that there are some ways of touching that can be bad. Demonstrate what to do if someone is touching in a bad way. So as you'll see here, the only things they talk about is sexual violence. Everything is sex positive. State that people show love and care for other people in different ways, including kissing, hugging, touching, and sometimes through sexual behaviours. That is then knowledge. So that's age 5 to 8. How does the gender play out for age 5 to 8? Well, in the same document, they are discussing they want to define gender and biological sex and describe how they are different. How they are different. This is age 5 to 8.
Okay, now we're moving on back to the WHO document here for 6 to 9. So again, we're going to focus on the sexuality bit here. Love, being in love, tenderness, sex in the media. This is from 6 to 9, bear in mind. Again, the enjoyment and pleasure when touching one's own body. And then it's got appropriate sexual language. So the teachers need to be teaching the children about appropriate sexual language from the age of 6. And then we've got there, under the skills, the accept, own and others' need for privacy, deal with sex in the media. How are these 6-year-olds going to deal with sex in the media? And use sexual language in a non-offensive way. And then at the end there, their attitudes, they need to have an understanding of acceptable sex, mutual, consensual, voluntarily, age-appropriate, context-appropriate, and self-respecting. Well, from my point of view, there's nothing appropriate about sex anyway when it comes to 6 and 9-year-olds. However, the World Health Organization have got a different attitude to that. Am I on the right slide? Sorry. I think we had a bit of a... Yeah. Sorry, we just had a...
6 to 9 to 12.
Yeah.
9 to 12, Alice, so go back one.
Yeah, I've done that one, just done it. I did 9 to 12, didn't I? Oh, okay, so now we've got 9 to 12 here. And so from the age of 9, information there, they want to talk to the children about their first sexual experience. And then we go on to gender orientation, sexual behaviour of young people. Then there's a bit of love, being in love, pleasure, masturbation, orgasm. This is from age 9. And then differences between gender identity and biological sex. And then the skills they want our children to acquire at this age is to communicate and understand different sexual feelings and talk about sexuality in an appropriate way. And then make a conscious decision to have sexual experience or not. And then at the end there, it talks about the acceptance, respect, and understanding of diversity in sexuality. So this is where they really want children to understand about, sort of different types of sexualities, different types of sex, etc. And then the understanding of sexuality as a learning process, and acceptance of different expressions of sexuality, such as kissing, touching, caressing, etc. And then we go on to, this is the UNESCO document that superseded the World Health Organization. So again, here we have got for 5 to 8, I believe, is in the blue there. Oh, we'll just leave it. And then in the pink here, where it's got learning objectives, 9 to 12. It is important to understand the key features of pregnancy. So here it lists about like what are the common signs, describe the tests available if you think you're pregnant, and this is the kind of things they want to teach from the age of 9.
So I just want to butt in there because age 9, I know a lot of you are from England here. Age 9, as you can see here in the UNESCO document, human beings are born with a capacity to enjoy sexuality throughout their life, so sexual from birth. Now, there's been a lot of thing in the news that sex education in England has been scrapped from age 9. I think you'll find that's just a policy. And if sex education was scrapped from age 9 in England, from age 9 we start with sexual intercourse anyway, according to the global guidance that they've brought in. So you need to be mindful that what's happening with the sex education when you're being told these new policies come into place. Policies can change overnight. Legislation is here to stay. The legislation is in Wales, is coming to the rest of the UK. The government have created case law. They have proven we've got no rights, and that's the way we're moving forward. So we've got no parental rights. They're pulling out these policies for people to believe the sex education is being scrapped when really it's not going anywhere. So now we're going to look at a little bit of lesson content for you, okay? We're not going to go into it in great detail. We're just going to stick to the primary school, and we're just going to work our way through it one by one.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Graphic lessons on oral sex, how to choke your partner safely, and 72 genders. This is what passes for relationships and sex education in British schools. Across the country, children are being subjected to lessons that are age inappropriate, extreme, sexualising and inaccurate, often using resources from unregulated organisations that are actively campaigning to undermine parents. This is not a victory for equality, it is a catastrophe for childhood. Will my right honourable friend honour his commitment to end inappropriate sex education by commissioning an independent inquiry into the nature and extent of this safeguarding scandal?
Can I say I share my honourable friend's concerns and thank her for her work in this area. That's why I've asked the Department for Education to ensure that schools are not teaching inappropriate or contested content in RSHE. Our priority should always be the safety and well-being of children, and schools should also make curriculum content and materials available to parents. As a result of all of this, we are bringing forward a review of RSHE statutory guidance, and we'll start our consultation as soon as possible.
So this was last summer, okay, before the summer holidays. They did that inquiry and they didn't publish the findings because it's not in the public interest. They also said they need to share lesson content with the parents. That is not happening. You have no right to see that lesson content because the schools don't actually own it. It's third-party organisations. As Miriam Kate said there, unregulated organisations. So Rishi Sunak, he mentioned the Department for Education, and I'm glad he mentioned that because it brings us on to our next piece here, because I've challenged the Department for Education on this. So for anybody who doesn't know, I am a criminologist. I got a criminology background, child sex abuse, institutional abuse, and more specifically perpetrators of abuse. So I understand the mind of a perpetrator, explanations of abuse, models of offending, barriers of disclosure, and so on. So I know the grooming process. I understand the process these perpetrators go through to offend and to harm our children. So this particular lesson content has been put out as a safeguarding tool, okay? It starts from age 3, and the children are asked to label and discuss parts of their anatomy: penis, testicles, bottom, nipples, vulva, breasts, bottom, nipples. So these are supposed to be biological terms, okay? They're supposed to be biological terms. Okay, some people do teach their children this stuff. However, we are told there's safeguards. We are told children need this vocabulary so they can disclose abuse that's happened to them. I have never, ever, ever met an interviewer that does not come down to a child's level to take their disclosure, to take their statement. We've been told that teachers have been in a situation where a child has said, "Oh, my uncle licked my cookie." So now we've got to introduce children to this terminology. Bearing in mind, that's what they say, by the way, there's no evidence to support that, okay? So they say in introducing this terminology helps children safeguard themselves, helps them disclose, it helps teachers understand. We need to come down to the child, we don't bring the child up to the person. What we do know with this is, we know that when a child can confidently discuss their genitalia, that is seen as consent. We also know from another video from Tom O'Carroll, we haven't got it here today, but Tom O'Carroll will tell you in his book that when a child responds enthusiastically to compliments about their knickers, that is consent. So I've got all of these studies of these paedophiles telling me how they engage with children and how that's seen as consent. And then I've got some people in the RSE organisation that I'm a licence holder for telling me, but one woman said, "My uncle licked my cookie," or "My uncle stroked my mouse." Bring me that woman. Where's the evidence? You're telling me someone said. I don't want someone said. I want piles of evidence. I've got piles of research telling me the paedophiles take this as consent, and you are telling me it's safeguards. It's simply not good enough. So we challenge the Department for Education. We want the research that supports this. And that would come in two forms, you see. It would either be a big, massive file of Crown Prosecution Service paperwork that did not go through because a child doesn't know that that's her vagina or her vulva. Or there would be a study where children are placed into a room, some who know their genitalia, some who do not know the correct names for it, and you would send paedophiles in to test it. That is unethical, and it's never going to happen. So we've gone after them. Where's this research? Where's this research? Where's this research? It took 4 years to get this research of the NSPCC. It came in the form of 2 studies, published by the same woman, Walsh, from New South Wales in Australia, and these studies are a survey of sexual prevention programs. There is no evidence to suggest this safeguards. Now, I've had some parents say to me, "But I've taught my children this." That's fine. If you want to teach your children these words, that's fine. But bear in mind, they'll be searching them on the internet, okay? If you want to teach your children these words to safeguard them, that's okay. But the problem is, you see, when we teach in children the same terminology for their genitalia. We have now given predators a password for their genitalia. The only thing we should be teaching all children is privates are private, and we do not go past there. So this is a controversial part that we will continue arguing with the safeguarders, and we will continue calling this out, because this does not safeguard. And 3-year-olds should not be talking about vulvas and their scrotums. So we've discussed the early childhood masturbation with you, and we've shown you how it refers to stimulation then in the UNESCO document. But this is how it plays out in school for the 4-year-olds. So this was in 241 schools in England. You will read in the papers that it came from Warwickshire Council. It came from the United Nations, and it's in about 52 different languages, you know. This came from there. So let's have a little read of it. These are the rules about touching yourself too. Now, lots of people like to tickle or stroke themselves as it might feel nice. They might play with their hair, stroke their skin, or they may even touch their private parts. This is really very normal. However, some people may get cross or say that it's dirty, especially when you touch your own privates. This is strange, as it's really very normal. However, it is not polite to do it when people are about. It is something we should only do when we are alone, perhaps in the bath or shower or in bed, a bit like picking your nose. It is certainly not polite to do it in the class when everyone is watching. Now, children will put their hands in their trousers. They will touch themselves. Nobody is denying that, okay? Nobody is denying that. But there's also children that are doing it because they've been abused. There's also children doing it because they've got a medical issue. There's children doing it through neglect and they find it soothing. What we as safeguarders do, we look out for behaviours in children, what we call a non-verbal disclosure. So not only has this taken every 4-year-old in the country and directed them to touching themselves because it might feel nice, we have programmed every single child away from what we call a non-verbal disclosure. So where's the safeguarding in that? Age 4, self-stimulation. And here we are, we're on age 5 to 8. You will find most of this stuff here on the slides from the Scottish curriculum. So the Scottish government is the only government brave enough to put their stuff online. 100 lesson plans, all online, and again, in several different languages. So this is age 5 to 8. One way is that a woman and man love each other and they have sex. This is a special thing that grown-ups can do. When they have sex, the man's penis goes inside the woman's vagina and sperm comes out and goes in to meet the egg inside the woman's body. Age 5 to 8.
Okay, so here's another slide which is put in the Scottish curriculum. And as you can see here, it says love is love. This is something we hear quite a lot. We hear this a lot in the media. We hear it everywhere now when LGBTQ plus, they're showing their flags. Love is a very popular saying. But I just put this slide up here because I just wanted to draw your attention. This quote here is Miles, who was only age 5, and it says, "But love makes everyone feel good, so you should share your love with anyone and everyone you want to. Nobody should be made to feel bad about that." So that's a 5-year-old now making a statement when it comes to LGBTQ plus lessons. And here we have transgender. So this is a slide for 9 to 12. So from the age of 9, they're discussing here about transgender, understanding how I look, how to behave, or my aspirations should not be limited by my stereotypes. But of course here they're not just talking about the usual male and feminine stereotypes as when we were growing up. They're actually talking about now you could be born in the wrong body. And then we've got a little bit here about transphobia. So, anybody that may disagree with this trans agenda, they're going to be labelled with this label, transphobia, which is a kind of prejudice and discrimination. So it is when someone who is transgender is put down or hurt or discriminated against just because they are transgender. So this could include someone disagreeing with them. Okay, so this is a slide from age 9, and we have heard many parents complaining about this type of lesson in Welsh schools, but this particular slide here has been taken from the Scottish curriculum. So we've got when a boy is asleep, he can get an erection. He might ejaculate. Ejaculation is when penis comes out of the boy's erect penis. And then when a girl is asleep, a vulva can become very wet and slippery. And then it says, not everyone has wet dreams, but if you do, this is normal. And then it just goes on about, sort of clean yourself. So this is from age 9, teaching this in the classroom. Not only would this be very awkward for a teacher, but can you imagine how bad the children are going to feel? There's going to be children who are going to find it funny. There's going to be children who are going to be traumatized by this. So, again, it's just information that we really don't need to be filling our children's heads with at that young age.
And what we are finding is, so we've been dealing with a group of 9-year-olds where they've been doing inappropriate things, and these wet dreams and the semen has come into it, and we've got a load of 9-year-olds that's confused because they just can't get their head around it. You pee out of that. So this is not developmentally appropriate if the children are becoming confused from it. So again, age 9, like I've said, they'd enter sexual intercourse at the age of 9. They think children can have sexual intercourse from age 9. So if a man and a woman are having sex and they both want to do it, the man can put his penis inside a woman's vagina and gently move his penis in and out. This should feel nice for them both. Remember, age 5 to 8 was they talking about they're having sex. Now they're actually saying about moving in and out. So they've gone that step further again. When people have sex, they might have an orgasm. For a woman, an orgasm is a pleasurable feeling in her body. For a man, if he has an orgasm called ejaculation, a white liquid called semen will come out of his hard penis. He will enjoy this feeling. And then it just goes on to oral sex. Oral sex is when a man or woman licks or kisses the private parts of another person, such as their penis or vagina. Anal sex is when a man puts a penis into a woman's anus or bottom. Anal sex. And as you can see, this is deemed age appropriate because it's a cartoon, you see. So because it's a cartoon, that is deemed age appropriate. We take it a step further. They're talking about pleasure in the prostate, the nerve endings. They never, ever, ever discuss any kinds of risk. It's all sex positive and sex positivity. So we're told this education is safe and ethical, but here we have a chicken being tied up for bondage. We have the hot dog sausages coming in. That's supposed to be a threesome. It's fun and engaging. There we have a pancake that swallows, and then we have the famous, the infamous 40% of women like anal. That's the banana in the Nutella. So 96% of the Scottish population deemed this inappropriate. The Scottish Sun got hold of this story. It did not get published. So, these people are just obsessed with our children's bodies. And you know, some of these things may seem innocent if we did not know the kind of people who are writing this stuff, the way they think. You know, they think children and adults are equal. There is no such thing as innocence. So I'm going to do a little exercise with you now, and this is called the body map. And this is being used throughout schools all across the UK in different ways. So a lot of you there will have a little silhouette of a boy or a girl. So if you just take a look at that, because this is the first step of the body mapping. So the first instruction of body mapping, if Lucia can come here and I can demonstrate, you got to draw around the body, okay? So I'm a child and I'm going to draw around Lucia's body. But Lucia's got a skirt on. So what's the children supposed to do there? Do they continue up or do they draw across the skirt? We've gone across the skirt, okay? So not only are children encouraged to draw around each other, they then talk about different feelings within the body, okay? So you've all got your image there, your little silhouette. So what you need to do now is look at that and think about where on the body it feels good to be touched. The children have to do this, so you've got to do it as well. So then I want you to turn to the person next to you, and as an example, starting with having your head stroked, how nice and relaxing that would feel. Discuss with the person next to you where else on the body feels good to be touched. Nothing is out of bounds. I can't hear anyone talking. Is this lesson content too hard for you? How do you actually feel, though? How do you feel? Turning to the person next to you and discussing how it feels in your body. Nothing is out of bounds. We've been talking about the penis, we've been talking about self-stimulation, early childhood masturbation, and now they want to talk about where on the body it feels good to be touched. And these are people who publish papers, and in their papers they quote things like adult plus child equals okay. So I just want you to imagine yourself in a classroom. You all know children. You all know children aged 5 to 12. Picture one of those children. Do you have someone with additional needs that doesn't like being touched? Do you have a child with additional needs that repeats things, repetitive, takes things too far? Do you have a shy child? Do you have a little girl there with no tights on, having her body drawn around? In the class, we've seen videos, they've got their legs wide open. This is on the Agenda website, by the way. So these are the kind of things our children have to deal with within their classroom. This is what goes on every week in the schools in the UK. So what have we been doing about it? As you know, we have fought through the courts, we fought through the democratic process. It simply does not exist. And everybody's wondering how have this stuff come into schools. I can see those barriers to disclosure. I know paedophiles have a field day with this. So we've got an entire nation of safeguarders, and they allow it. Are they allowing it? Or are they not appropriately trained? And that's what we are dealing with now. A nation of people who are not adequately trained on child sex abuse, exploitation, perpetrators of abuse, models of offending, and barriers to disclosure. So that is where we are at now on our mission. We've spent the last, 6 months educating and training people on advocacy, rights and representation, empowering individuals to go into schools and challenge teachers. We have had lesson content removed. We have safeguarded small groups of children. Small groups. We need more people out there, more parents out there making this bigger, planting these seeds, educating the educators. Another thing we've recently done is we've actually written our own training package. So we've written a training package on institutional child sex abuse awareness training. We've got a workbook to accompany it. It's all copyright, and we have a quick sample of that if anybody would like to look later on. But this is the mission we are on now, ladies and gentlemen, because we believe that if our teachers, we don't believe all teachers are bad. We don't believe all teachers understand what's coming into their schools. But we believe if we can get the right people, the teachers, the health visitors, if we can adequately educate them, they will in turn safeguard our children and stop this stuff coming past those school gates. That is the only thing we can do now. That is our mission moving forward. And we did our first one the week before last, and we had 100% success on it. So that's our mission now, guys. We are about training and educating people. We can write RSE resources, proper safeguarding resources. We can show you how to safeguard your children from age 3, so your children can protect themselves from this lesson content. We are doing it, we will do it, and we welcome you to invite us to your areas and to your groups so we can deliver the same to you. Because it takes a country to raise a child, but it takes a village to raise a child, but it's going to take a country to keep them safe. And the only way we can get at this agenda is by uniting this kingdom. And ladies and gentlemen, together we will do that, and we will safeguard our children.